What's up, guys? I'm going to introduce you to a channel called Trader University by a man named Matthew Crater. This guy, one of the smartest guys I've ever seen when it comes to trading stocks, real estate, investments, trading period, and the economy. He's been in the market for a very, very long time. I believe he's in his 50s or something like that. Very smart, analytical man. He got into Bitcoin a few years ago, and when he first started his channel, he was just talking about the regular, investing and trading and stuff. But this guy, so far, can explain Bitcoin as best as I've ever seen it. Now I'm going to go through this video that he did, and it's called "Has Bitcoin's Boat Already Sailed?" That's what the video is called. Bitcoin's S curve. Now, in one of the videos, a couple of videos ago, I talked about the S curve where it goes up like this and that. Listen, there's an S curve in the in investments, right? You got Amazon, you got cars, you got internet, refrigerators, different things that started off at one point, and it started off low in the beginning, and then it goes up and up and up and up until it reaches a point where it levels off, and maybe 80 to 100% of the people in the world have it. That's an S curve. It goes like this, then it goes up, then it goes like that, like an S, right? He explains it pretty much better than I've ever heard anybody. So let's go dive into this video and let's see what he has to say about it.
This is Matthew Crater from Trader University, and today I want to answer the question, has Bitcoin's boat already sailed? And in the process, we're going to be talking about Bitcoin's global adoption and Bitcoin's S-curve. This is a question that I get a lot, so I wanted to make a video that I could just permanently refer to. Here's an example of the kind of question I get. Bitcoin, or question or comment, Bitcoin is at the top of its S-curve. Yeah, your gains may be a little bit better than ETFs like SPY or QQQ. Bitcoin boat has already sailed. This seems to have originated with Richard Hart of Hex scammer fame. If you do a search, you usually find out that this critique of Bitcoin being at the top of its S-curve really comes from him. At least that's where I believe most of it comes from. For those of you who don't know about Richard Hart, he's not exactly a serious character. I will link to the video below where he's basically twerking.
What I love about his channel, he's kind of got like dry humor, but he breaks down everybody in the crypto game and stuff like that. People that are doing different shitcoin, altcoins, whatever. And he breaks it all down, you know what I mean? And he tells you if somebody says this or that, he breaks it down like what kind of character he is and what kind of person he is and why they're doing or saying what they're doing or what they're saying.
You can see his token, which was basically a pump and dump, has gone from about 50 cents last year down to less than 2 cents. And a lot of people have gotten really hurt by this. I made a video about this last year, warning people about it. And now it looks like the US SEC is going after Richard Hart and Hex. They've been investigating influencers who've been promoting Hex, Pulse Chain, and Pulse X. So hopefully someone takes care of Richard Hart pretty soon and he ends up behind bars, as he should, for this scam. But I only mention this because you should know who is promulgating this, and you should know his background. Richard Hart is actually a very smart guy, a very good debater, but I believe he's an unscrupulous character. And I think this is where this S-curve critique is coming from. For those of you not familiar with the S-curve, it's basically a way of plotting global adoption. And so the curve looks somewhat like an S. It starts off flat, it's got a steeper part, and then it ends flat. At the beginning, it's flat because you're at 0 market penetration. At the top, it's flat because you're at 100% market penetration. And you have these various periods. If we look back over the 20th century, we can see that a lot of new technologies followed the S-curve. We have the telephone, the automobile, electricity, refrigerator. These are roughly S-curves. You can see the color TV here has a nice S-curve. And it reaches the point where, for example, at least in developed countries, most people have a stove, most people have a refrigerator, most people have a color TV, have a phone, etc. So this is an example of how new technologies spread.
I absolutely love looking at that chart. I mean, I love it. The telephone, electricity, automobile, what else we got? Radio, clothes washer, refrigerator, stove, color TV, air conditioning, dishwasher, microwave, cell phone, VCR. I mean, all of them do an S-curve because when they first come out, people think, what is this? What's this going to do? And blah, blah, blah. And it's all different kind of technology that helps us. Basically, technology, what it does is it gives us avenues to do things easier, right? Like an email is a lot cheaper and faster and easier than it is to mail, a regular, putting a post stamp on an envelope and mailing something. It's a lot easier to call someone on the phone versus going to see them. It's a lot easier to get in the car and drive versus walking. You get the picture. And I love this chart, how it first starts off and then it goes up and then it goes, I love it. I mean, if you actually look at that chart, it's absolutely amazing.
And I believe Bitcoin is following a similar path. So then the question is, do you agree with Richard Hart that we're at the top of the S-curve, that we're basically at 100% adoption? And this is always his critique. And part of this critique was you should, instead of buying Bitcoin, you should buy something that's at the bottom of its S-curve rather than the top of its S-curve. So again, this is a very disingenuous critique, and it's meant to sell his own token. But let's just take a look and see whether this critique is right. If Bitcoin is at the top of the S-curve, that means it's reached full adoption and the Bitcoin boat has sailed, and you shouldn't expect that much price appreciation from it in terms of fiat. So is Bitcoin really at the top of its S-curve? We will know it's at the top of its S-curve when it achieves virtually global adoption and distribution. If Bitcoin is really at the top of its S-curve, then you can be sure that everyone you know owns Bitcoin and understands Bitcoin and likes Bitcoin. That'd be approximately 7 or 8 billion people. No one thinks Bitcoin's a scam if we're at the top of the S-curve. And no one is criticizing Bitcoin for its energy usage, of course, since everyone owns some and you don't generally badmouth an investment that you own. Now, if your holiday experience the last couple of weeks with friends and family and extended family was like mine, you will realize that we're nowhere close to full Bitcoin adoption, even in the US, even among a fairly educated and wealthy population, because the US is very wealthy globally. Over the holidays, I found friends and extended family kept telling me that FTX and Sam Bankman-Fried and Bitcoin were basically the same thing. They really conflated it in their minds and the news, and that the scam was finally over. Bitcoin was finished because SBF and FTX blew up.
Man, he hit the nail right on the head. Everybody I talked to during the Christmas, Thanksgiving break, after all that FTX stuff happened with scam, bankrupt, fraud, when he did with that, everybody was asking me, are you okay with your Bitcoin and blah, blah, blah. Bitcoin had absolutely nothing to do with this. And guys, I keep bringing up Bitcoin because they're on the same team. Bitcoin and silver are on the same team. We need to interact digitally because the CBDCs are coming. That's why I'm telling you, we're not going to transact in silver. The only thing we're going to do with silver is take it and transact it into either cash or CBDCs. You know what I mean? If there's even going to be cash in 20 or 30 years, who knows? But he is exactly right. People do not understand what Bitcoin is, and most of you guys don't because you haven't took the time to study it. I was the same way when I first, was hearing about it. I kept saying, "What the hell is Bitcoin?" And I would put Bitcoin and all these other cryptocurrencies, these shit coins together, and they're not the same. Bitcoin is completely different. But this guy breaks it down absolutely outstanding. He has a great channel, so I'm gonna keep letting him go.
And so this is really how early we are. This is a lot like 1993 for the internet, which was the year before Netscape came out, which really made the internet accessible for the general population. And even after Netscape came out, most people weren't online until the late 90s. So I think we're very, very early.
Remember that example I used a few videos ago about the internet, how everybody didn't think it was going to work and blah, blah, blah. Then Netscape came out and it made the internet even better. Well, this chart you're getting ready to look at is from Blockware Solutions. And on the left of the chart, you're going to see the Bitcoin price. And on the right of the chart, you're going to see the cumulative sum of net entities, meaning how many people are on it and stuff like that. And as you can see, the chart just goes up and up and up. So the price is going up and the user base is going up, but it is nothing compared to how many people are on this planet. Check this out.
Blockware Solutions came out with an interesting piece last year in which they tried to look at blockchain data, Bitcoin blockchain data, and get an idea of how many unique entities or users were using the Bitcoin network, either as a medium of exchange or a store of value. And they came up with approximately 30 or 31 million unique entities, 30.8 million unique users. And if we divide that into the global population, we end up with an estimate of approximately 0.36% of the global population is currently using Bitcoin. Again, that's not 36%, that's a third roughly of 1 percentage point. And so if you plot out the S-curve as Blockware did, you can see where we are here. This was published in, I believe, the middle of 2022. Things probably haven't changed too much since then in terms of user adoption. If anything, it's maybe gone down a little bit with all the scare headlines. But this is where we are in the headline. We are way down here with just less than 1% of the global population using Bitcoins. And so when people like Richard Hart and other crypto scammers and promoters tell you that you're at the top of the S-curve, I would ask to see the data. If we're at the top of the S-curve, you'd expect maybe not 100% of the global population using Bitcoin, but wouldn't you expect 60, 70, 80, 90%? And instead, we are way down here. So these are all lies. We are nowhere close to Bitcoin full adoption. And you know this because most of your friends and the people you know do not like Bitcoin. They hate Bitcoin. They don't own Bitcoin. They don't understand Bitcoin. They confuse FTX and Bitcoin. They confuse XRP or Hex and Bitcoin. We're still very, very early.
And that is exactly why I'm making these videos, guys. You know, I don't know anybody in my personal life that loves silver or precious metals more than me. I don't. And the reason why I like it because I love my freedom and you know, I like having money out of the banking system. You know what I mean? Decentralized assets. That's my channel is called Freedom and Decentralized Assets. And I like decentralized assets because it gives me freedom. There are people who are just confused about Bitcoin. I'm screaming from the top of the roofs because, again, when I first started getting into precious metals in July of 2020, I started seeing things that I'd never seen before. And I didn't start getting into it until I was 45 and a half years old. Now, I'm a guy from finance. I have a finance degree and I have a finance background. I've studied money for years. And I didn't know about the Richard Nixon, August 15th, 1971, taking us off the gold standard.
Good evening. The time has come for a new economic policy for the United States. We must protect the position of the American dollar as a pillar of monetary stability around the world. In the past 7 years, there's been an average of one international monetary crisis every year. Now, who gains from these crises? Not the working man, not the investor, not the real producers of wealth. The gainers are the international money speculators. Because they thrive on crises, they help to create them. In recent weeks, the speculators have been waging an all-out war on the American dollar. The strength of a nation's currency is based on the strength of that nation's economy. And the American economy is by far the strongest in the world. Accordingly, I have directed the Secretary of the Treasury to take the action necessary to defend the dollar against the speculators. I have directed Secretary Connally to suspend temporarily the convertibility of the dollar into gold or other reserve assets, except in amounts and conditions determined to be in the interest of monetary stability and in the best interest of the United States.
I didn't know anything about it until I started getting into precious metals. And then once I got into precious metals, then it got me into learning about cryptocurrencies. And then I thought, oh, wow, cryptocurrencies are good. And then I figured out, well, wait a minute, it's not cryptocurrencies. This is Bitcoin. What's Bitcoin? I started looking into it more and more and more. And I was just like, wow, this thing is different than cryptocurrency. You know what I mean? So, again, I'm making this video for you guys because you guys love precious metals just like I do. But the reason you love precious metal because it gives you freedom. And that's exactly what Bitcoin will give you in the digital world.